One thing that we forgot to discuss was the return 99. Looking back at the pseudocode, you can see that on the return statement at the very bottom, it says we should never get here because we covered all the possibilities in the above code. The reason that line is there at all is so our program will build. As we learned earlier, if we take that line of code out, we get an error on the method signature because it's not returning a value through all the code paths. It's returning a value through most of the code paths, but not the one at the bottom. In other words, if all of these expressions are false, then it gets down to here, and it still needs to return something, which we didn't do. Put that back in, the squiggle goes away. Syntactically, we're correct. Logically, we should never get here because somewhere up above, one of these should have been true. One of these game conditions should have always been true. If we did it right, we covered every possible blackjack situation. Player loses, player wins, dealer wins, push, tie. So theoretically, I can return anything I want right here because it'll never get there. I even put that in the pseudocode. We should never get here because we covered all the possibilities in the above code. I'm confident. I threw in a minus 99 because it looked like a number that appeared to be invalid that would be kind of a red flag. However, this program is broken. If you look at enhancement 2, for input 219060, it doesn't work. Gives the wrong answer. I'm going to take this line of code, 219060, this comment, go back to the main, and I'm going to add another test case. Fix the error. Two 19 0 6 0. I don't know what that is. I do know it doesn't work. Unfortunately, I don't know what the answer is supposed to be either. So it's going to take a little bit of debugging to figure out where we went wrong. I'm fairly sure that it's going to fall out the bottom and give us the wrong answer. But let's find out. It never hurts to run it. Oh, I got a 0. Okay. It did trigger one of the conditions then, but I don't know which one. I know it didn't fall out the bottom because it would have returned a 99. So one of these other conditions caused it to exit, but that's the wrong answer. Let's work with the debugger a little bit to try to figure out where we went wrong. The first thing I'm going to do is set a breakpoint in the method by double-clicking in the margin. You can also right-click and toggle. The breakpoint appears as that little circle right there in the margin. Instead of running the program the way we usually do, I'm going to start it with the debugger. By starting it with the debugger, it will run until the breakpoint, then it'll stop. This allows us to step through the code a line at a time, examine the value of the variables, watch the logic unfold. It's an invaluable tool for debugging logic. Syntax is easy, logic is hard. So all I have to do is click the bug. The program started the way it always does. It started in the main, ran this line, ran that line, ran that line, ran that line, which caused it to call this method. It jumped into the method and hit the breakpoint and stopped. The green means that is the next line of code that will be executed. It has not been executed yet. I can do some very interesting things here. I can hover over the variable names and it will tell me the value of those variables. I can even do it up here. 10, 20, 0, 21, 0. If you look back at the main again, you can see that's what I passed in, right? Oh, I'm sorry, it's up here. It ran this one. Okay. So I'm actually executing this line of code, not that line of code. And in order to get this to be a little more speedy, to expedite this process, let me start over because I don't want you to have to sit through this. So I'm going to go ahead and move this code up to the top. Okay. Now the first time the method will be called will be the one that's broken. We don't have to sit through all the others. And I've still got the breakpoint right there. I'll start the program again. Debug. I'll hover 2, 19, 0, 6, 0. Now look back at the main, and that's where I want to be right now. 219060. Good. Okay. The green line, as I said, is where the program is waiting to run. That's the next line of code. Under the Run menu, I can select Step Over. Every time I step over, it will execute the line in green. And just that line in green. Now, when you're doing this on your own, at your desk at work, use F6. Press the F6 key to step, step, step. I'm going to use the mouse in the menu so you can see what I'm doing, but this is very inefficient. F6. The green line moves down. Since the green line moved down to the next line of code, I know that it did not execute this return statement, or I'd be back in the main again. Okay? I know this condition did not end up being true. So I'll do an F6 again. It didn't return here. Let's see if it returns on this line. Nope. Nope. Okay. So it returned on, I believe, this line right here. Let's act like we don't know. We were stepping, stepping, stepping. We don't know where it returned. We got confused. So somehow we ended up back in the main again. See the green line? So let's just break out. And let's do it again. Click the debugger, Now instead of using the mouse this time, I'm going to press F6 so we can watch the progress a little easier. So I'll say F6, 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 F6. Good. It returned then on this line, player lost. Let's take a close look at the data and see if it really makes sense. The data is the winner's bet, or the player's bet, which is irrelevant at this point, the score of the dealer, whether the dealer got blackjack, the score of the player, whether the player got blackjack. Okay, so in this particular set of test data, the dealer got 19, the player got 6. Neither one of them got blackjack. So it appears like the dealer should have won and the player should have lost, right? So we're stuck then. We know that this is returning an invalid number. We know that this set of data is invalid, but we don't know why it's invalid. It looks to us like it's correct. It looks to us like since the dealer had 19 and the player had 6, the player should have lost. So it looks like it should be returning from here then, right? Okay, if we believe our eyes, which we should believe our eyes, we should be confident. We should be convinced that this logic is correct and it is correctly evaluating this data. So what else could be wrong? Well, the what else that could be wrong is this. We're pretty sure our if is correct. If you take a close look at this, this is wrong. If the player loses, you're supposed to return a negative of what they bet. They lost their bet. So this should be 0 minus bet. That's the bug. It wasn't the logic in the if statement, it was the calculated value in the return statement, and that solves the problem. Of course, when we run it now, we get a -2, which is correct because the player's bet was 2 and they lost it, so it returns a -2. We solved that problem. Hopefully you can visualize how difficult that would have been without the debugger. Mentally executing this code, trying to do this in your head, is ridiculous. Learn the debugger, make your life easier. You cannot succeed in this business without a debugger.